Haisten. Bill Haisten joins us now, and man, yeah, we had Colin Carmichael, the soccer coach, on a little earlier with basketball. Here's the deal: I'm on the road last weekend, filling in for Rex Holt, doing baseball on the radio. Rex is in St. Louis with the wrestling at the wrestling championships, and I'm rooming with Wade McWhorter from the athletic media relations staff, and he's handling baseball, but then in between games, he's on his computer handling the soccer team. I mean, this is the craziest semester ever for college sports.
Yep. Hey, what about states like New Mexico? They're playing football right now.
Yeah,
And
that's
they
true.
were overlap. They were overlap high school. I mean,
I got, yeah.
they were overlapping everything. So
Well, I got news for you. The college football too, and I don't know how many people have been paying attention to other than Deion Sanders at Jackson State because they get so much publicity. But I mean, my son, they're Northeastern State and Tahlequah. Their Division II is playing football right now. In fact, they'll be down this weekend playing Tarleton State, who's moving to Division I. They're going to play in that new WAC. So they're playing this fall too. We went over and watched them play Arkansas Tech. So yeah, I've seen some college football this spring too.
right. Well, the NSU football program is on my list. As soon as Oral Roberts is finished, there's several projects I want to get on to, and NSU football is one of them because 2019 was so historically, like
Bad.
tragically bad, just awful.
Oh, yeah.
And so then they have the COVID season or not having the fall season because of COVID, and so I've just thought, man, how in the world do you keep guys engaged and motivated to lift and work and do all of that? And so I'm gonna go down there and spend a couple of days and write about the state of that program. What do they play? They play 5 games, something like that.
5 games,
Yeah.
and we the Arkansas Tech game. I went thinking, ugh, and I mean, and Zach's honest. He says, hey, it's just going to take a while. This is not an easy project, but
Right.
I get there and I mean, they were they looked good. I mean, it was a like a 3 point game, and I'm like, okay, well that's not bad. I mean, now this week this is a money game for their level. Tarleton State's writing them a check to come to Stephenville and be a lamb slaughtered. So we'll see how they do because Tarleton State opened their season this spring by beating McNeese. McNeese is
Right.
a pretty established. That was their first Division I game ever, and they go beat McNeese State, which impressed me. Anyway, hey, let's talk about something that's more impressive. I called you from Lubbock as soon as I finished watching it because I didn't know. I know ORU back in the day. ORU was an NCAA constant. Of course, Bill Self had ORU going. And folks, I called Bill Hayes and said, "Is that the biggest win over Ohio State? Is that the biggest win in ORU history?" Well, since you and I talked, there's been one bigger.
Well, I think they're. I don't know how you would categorize them in terms of big. I guess in my mind they're equal. Certainly, the Ohio State game was more shocking. It
Mm-hmm.
was ORU was a 17-point underdog, and I mean 15 just they don't win much, and only 8 times before ever had a 15-1, and I just expected ORU to just get overwhelmed, physically overwhelmed uh, in that game, and they just hung around. Well, you watched it. I mean, they played really well,
Yeah.
and they're on a really nice roll right now, and they had a pretty nice non-conference schedule. They didn't win those games, but they went to Stillwater and played really well, and Ace in
Yes, they
particular played
did.
unbelievably well, and they lose I think by 5, and then Um, they went to Fayetteville. This is really interesting, because they're matched with Arkansas in the Sweet 16. So they go to Fayetteville on December 20, and at halftime they're up 10, and early in the second half, ORU's up 12, and Arkansas really rallied in a nice way and applied defensive pressure like they do, and Arkansas won by 11. But until really the last minute and a half, it was kind of anybody's game, and so now here those teams are matched in the Sweet 16, which is pretty remarkable. And then a really interesting storyline beyond that is the winner, more than likely, I think, gets Baylor.
Right.
And Paul Mills, the ORU coach, was a big part of building what they have at Baylor now. He was Scott Drew's top assistant for 14 years, and I would say, they're like brothers. I mean, Scott Drew is Paul Mills' best friend in basketball and maybe best friend on the planet. And you would have that unbelievable, improbable matchup of best friends, one at a tiny Christian school in Tulsa and one at Baylor. Possibly, for the right to go to the Final Four. I mean, that's a huge if, because I expect Arkansas to do what I expected Ohio State and Florida to do, which is win by 15. But at the same time, I'd be an idiot to underestimate Oral Roberts and to say they got no chance. They have a chance.
Oh no, I think they have a big chance. And you know what? If Paul Mills ends up playing Scott Drew, in a way for Drew, that's almost like playing his dad, because it's a close, somebody you're really close to at a small Christian school. It would be not that dissimilar than Baylor playing Valpo back in the day.
That's right.
And Valpo was, so that will be a tremendously, now I do think Baylor's got to get past Villanova, and I think they will, but boy, I've learned never to underestimate Jay Wright. And they've changed their team. A lot of people thought they were dead in the water when they lost their point guard. Now they've changed they go through they kind of play with a point forward now, and they're not suffering. So Baylor will have their work cut out for them. But yeah, this is going to be interesting, and I get the sense Oral Roberts is like a college version of the Thunder, in that I think Oklahoma State fans and OU fans, I think the whole state will be rooting for the Golden Eagles.
Yeah, I would think
and
so.
Should.
That's what I wrote the other day, except for the people who have a very specific investment in one of the remaining schools, or you might be the most popular team on the bracket, left on the bracket.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and listen, I've met and interviewed Asmus and O'Banner, and they are unbelievable kids. I mean, Paul Mills really, not only did he recruit good players and find them at little bitty private schools, one in Dallas, Asmus in East Dallas, and O'Banner out of Houston. But, I mean, they fit the culture over there perfectly. They can really play. Asmus is only a sophomore. O'Banner's a junior. O'Banner is 6'8", Robert. He was a really good cross-country athlete in high school. And so if you look at the first two games, Asmus and O'Banner, they haven't come out of the game yet. They're fine, and they are fine in the final 4 minutes because of their conditioning. And Asmus has played every minute of 17 games this year. He never comes out. So, I think the lack of actual travel. I mean, the bubble. I think they're bored out of their minds, and I think they're stir crazy and not allowed to just roam outside as they want. But at the same time, they don't have the grind of actual travel, so that's probably a plus for their legs. And so, whatever the best of ORU is, Arkansas will get it. Conversely, ORU will get the best of Arkansas too. And Arkansas's got about 5 guys who were 4 stars or 4.5-star type guys. So I go into it really with the same for me, the same mindset I had last weekend is expecting the opponent to win each time, or I expected the opponent to win each time last week. Absolutely got my mind blown in the first round, and I gotta say, I mean, I was surprised by the Florida game, but not shocked. So
No.
can't wait to watch it. It's Robert. I got a stat here that just I went through the media guide a couple of nights ago. Spent a couple hours in the media guide, and I thought, of course, I've been aware always that this was an improbable run for ORU, and it kind of came out of nowhere. But in their last 180 games, they have a 7-game win streak as we speak. And it's been a pretty magical run because 5 of those games were elimination games. And in 4 of those games, they needed a walk-off tip-in to win the semifinals of their conference tournament. They needed an unbelievable, almost miraculous defensive play to win their conference title. They win as a 17-point underdog against Ohio State, and then they come back from an 11-point deficit in the second half to beat Florida. So that's where they are. They got this magic carpet ride of a run, and 7 in a row overall. Before they won 7 in a row, Robert, in 180 games before that, they were 73 and 107.
Wow.
So that is the stat of the year for me to underscore the improbability of what they're doing now. Because you talk about come out of nowhere. Now, a lot of times you'll see a 13 or 14 make a deeper run, but they're typically really, really good in their conference. ORU is like 34 and 46 over that period in their league. So, yeah, I mean, I understand teams and players kind of gel or click at a different pace, and it just looks to me like ORU's guys have all kind of clicked or gone to a better level kind of at the same time. And it's a heck of a story. I know that, and it has caught everybody over here. Everybody over here is as surprised as everybody in Stillwater or around the country watching it. Nobody gave them a chance to advance.
No, they're the reason that there won't be a perfect bracket. Obviously
Right.
this year. So, hey, I want to get into a little bit of spring football. Before we do that, though, I did a column yesterday. My mind was blown. The fact Baylor is the only Big 12 team to make it to the Sweet 16. I mean, I wasn't thinking the Big 12 would get 5 or 6 in the Sweet 16, but I thought they would at least get 2 or 3. I really did. And so I went back and I looked at the box scores. And Baylor is the only one in both their games that either hit the mark or exceeded the mark in offensive stats. And I wrote a column that Henry Iba and Eddie Sutton you'd get the scowl on their face if you looked them face to face and said, guess what, guys? Defense doesn't win championships. Offense wins games in the NCAA, and here's the proof. Oklahoma State, I've got Oklahoma State's numbers here. Points, field goal percentage, 3-point field goal percentage, and free throw percentage. Oklahoma State's numbers were okay. On the whole season, 76.6. They shot 45.8 from the field, 33.2 from 3-point range, which is, I mean, that's kind of average. And then 71% from the free throw line. Again, that's not anything, you're going to write home about. It's just kind of average. But their numbers in both the Liberty and the Oregon State games, in all 4 of those categories, were anywhere from significantly below to at least just a little below. And I mean, the field goal percentage against Oregon State, you're not going to beat too many people shooting 27.7%. And the 3-point percentage was 27.6. So you didn't make up with it by hitting, 3-pointers. And your free throw percentage, was 68.4. I mean, and then I looked at the other Big 12 schools that have been eliminated. Only one that was eliminated was anywhere close to their season average. You know who it was?
The way you're setting it up, it's got to be Baylor.
No, Baylor they exceeded. That's why they're moving on. There was one losing. There was one losing team that played good offense. I bet you can get this.
Well, OU exceeded my expectations.
And you know what? That's who it is. OU played good offense.
Yeah.
They just played a team that was so much better.
Yeah.
That's the only one. But Kansas was meteorically bad offensively. Texas Tech has struggled all year, and they struggled in the NCAA tournament. Oklahoma State's offense went sour on them. Texas, in their one game, couldn't hit the ocean. Yeah, I mean it was a consistent trait. The Big 12 couldn't play offense in the NCAA tournament.
Well, I mean, the one thing I would say about Baylor's advancing when the others didn't is that it was pretty undeniable that during the regular season, before the Baylor's COVID break, that they were clearly the best team in the league. And I thought,
yeah,
if you looked at every other team when fully loaded and at its best, if I had to do a pecking order, for some reason I kind of viewed West Virginia at one point as being kind of the second best team in a pound for pound kind of way. But then if you look at the run Oklahoma State had with the Bedlam sweep and the Texas Tech game and the Baylor game later, and you could have argued that they were maybe the second best team, but clearly Baylor was the best team. At no point did I think Kansas was, even when they were scratching together a few wins. And they were, holy smokes, they were shockingly bad the other night. I mean, like historically bad. And I mean, what did I see? It's the third worst loss in the history of the Kansas program. And I think it was Bill's worst loss since Duke beat him when he was at Tulsa. Duke beat him by about 40 in the tournament. But no, I've always believed that Baylor was the best team in the conference, and by 10 points. When everybody's at their best, I thought Baylor was 10 points better than the rest. So it doesn't surprise me that they advanced, but to have at least one or two others. When the Big 12 was unbelievable, I'm telling you, ESPN got every penny of their money's worth out of the Big 12 this year, and kind of wrapped their whole college basketball presentation around the Big 12. I thought it was the best Big 12 season in a long time, and with regard to just straight entertainment, maybe the best ever.
Yeah. Well, before we let Bill go, get into some spring football talk. I know I wasn't here Sunday because I was in Lubbock for the first one, but saw some the other day. And here at Oklahoma State, to me, the biggest news is Mike Gundy's got more players out there for spring football than they were running fours. A 4-team offense and a 4-team defense and team, which I've never seen that. Now the linemen were carrying over in some respects, but and they're getting a lot of work done. And then Mike Gundy confirmed. I was listening to a conversation with him and Kevin Clintworth. They are going to have a more of a traditional spring game. He said, I want to have about an hour of practice where we do some 7-on-7, some inside and stuff. So all the parents that are there can see their kids do something. We'll get them involved. But then they're going to do 2 15-minute quarters that will be timed, regular, no running clock. And he said, we'll play. We're going to play a game. Put it down and play it to win. And that'll be on a big weekend. Texas will be here for baseball. Could be an NCAA soccer regional event here as well, but that'll be on April 24th. So, but the big thing is when you got a lot of players out there, you can get a lot done.
Oh yeah. Now, are they going to do the spring? They're going to do a spring game in the stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the deal, Kev. They're going to close the street outside. I think they're hoping, if everything keeps going and the spring break, which OSU did not have a spring break, but that the COVID continues to slow down and improve, and next week with vaccinations open to 16 and over statewide, I think they haven't announced how many they'll let in the stadium, but I think they're hoping. And Bill in Lubbock, hey, Friday and Saturday, hey, Dan Law Field, Rip Griffin Park was full. I forgot what a full athletic event
Wow.
attendance wise looked like, but Texas is open. There were no masks. And I mean, Chief and I are doing the game on radio. We're looking at each other going, they said they were going to let 75% in here. Well, they lost track because they're sitting, as the commissioner of the Big 12 would say, cheek to butt, cheek to butt.
Yeah, that's like the Bixby Jinx game I went to in football season, and they said they were going to limit it to 3,000.
Oh, I was there with you, man.
There were 7,000 people there.
And the Jinx and the Bixby athletic director is looking at us going, I don't know how all these people got in here.
That's right. You were standing there. He said I think somebody must have left the gate open. But yeah, speaking of we weren't speaking of Braylon Presley, but I guess that was a little newsy a couple of days ago. But anyway, so let me ask you a question. I think if you had an open line and if I were a caller right now, this would be a typical question. But because it's been an issue off and on for 8 years, Robert, what is your feel for personnel and depth on the offensive line? Because I think
I was just going to say it's funny because I ran Casey Dunn's comment on that this morning to open the show. I think it's still a concern. I think Mike Gundy would tell you it's still a concern. But at least if they can keep the guys healthy that played last year, they're all still young. I mean, except for Godlewski, who transferred in from Miami of Ohio, who's a 3-year starter. He'll be your center. I've had pro scout in my neighborhood told me that the NFL looks at him as a potential future Jeff Saturday, undersized guy that's an overachiever. He's 6'3", 300, kind of. That's what Saturday was coming out of North Carolina. So they like him. They like Sills at the left guard. They're going to keep him there. But they need to keep everybody else healthy, and they need to keep developing them because you're still talking about guys like Cole Birmingham and Springfield and some really young guys but at least they're young guys that have seen the battle. They've been out there. And so I think the coaches would still tell you it's a concern, but if they can stay healthy, at least they're dealing with guys who've been out there and that they think are pretty good.
Right. Well, and because I don't think you could have Spencer Sanders in a better place. And I'm presuming, but I bet I'm right. I bet he couldn't be in a better place psychologically than he is coming out of a great performance at Baylor, albeit a Baylor team that was kind of in shambles, but still Sanders went down there and played a great game. And then to follow it with an MVP performance in the bowl game. So I that was so important. You can't calculate the importance of him coming out of the end of the season with a really positive feeling about his place in the program and his place on the offensive side of the program. And then you got this motherload of running backs. OSU had even Mike Gundy and Coach Dunn had to have been surprised when they kept having to go deeper and deeper into the backfield depth chart, and those guys just kept producing, and so they've got really nice people and nice depth in running back. They'll always have receivers. Sanders is in a good place. Illingworth got some game reps.
And they're going to let him pressure Sanders. They're going to let those two compete, which a lot of people would say, man, why do you do that? Well, I think you try and sharpen Sanders' edge and say, look, get better, keep getting better instead of you're the starter, have a relaxing spring here. No, I think you want to apply the heat, and when a guy's in a good position, he's confident. That's when you push him and make him better.
Yep. Yeah, and if he is what they think he is and what I think he is, he'll respond to that in the right way. And and furthermore, if you're pressed, because I covered 2 games last season, that's why I was so interested to hear that Gunnar Gundy may actually be the 3rd guy on the depth chart, because I covered 2 games last year in which the 3rd quarterback came off the bench to win the game. One of them was Illingworth against Tulsa, and one of them was Davis Brin for Tulsa against Tulane.
And see, that's the other thing. I know I've got to get out of here, but Bill, Oklahoma State they're going to have one of the toughest non-conference schedules in the league. I know they opened with Missouri State, and that's a scrimmage, but Tulsa will give them all they want, and then they go play up at Boise. And I know Boise's got a new coach, but you go up there and play in their place, and it's always an adventure. So they'll be tested going into the Big 12.
I've actually been in that stadium. I was there for a basketball regional, but I wanted to see the blue turf, and it for the OSU people who will make that trip. You'll be shocked by how nice Boise is. It's such a pretty town. But B, you'll be a little car sick by the blue turf. I got to tell you.
Yeah.
So
I'm expecting that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. But
at least I'm not a bird. Flying that.
Oh, no doubt. That's so cruel. I guess that really happened.
Oh yeah, they routinely, I'm told.
Just go out and clean the birds off the field before you can practice. Holy moly.
Roadkill becomes turf kill. Hey, I got to go, but I appreciate it. And again, thanks for the perspective on ORU, because I think that's a tremendous story. I'm looking forward to that game with the Golden Eagles and the Razorbacks. So
6:25 Saturday, Razorbacks, ORU. Who'd have thunk it? It's just shocking. So gives you something to watch this weekend, though, right?
No kidding. Hey, Bill, take care.
All right, Robert.
All right. Bill Haisten from the Tulsa World.